I'm Sofia Alarcon, and I am the creator of Endsickness, and this is the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Sofia Alarcon about her new graphic story collection, Endsickness, published by Conundrum Press. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Sofia Alarcon is a multi-disciplinary artist originally from Guatemala and now based in Halifax. She graduated from NSCAD University, where she pursued her interest in film, textiles, and drawing. After taking a long hiatus to raise her kids, she returned to art making through comics and cartoons. In 2021, with support from the Canada Council for the Arts, she began self-publishing her one-person anthology series, Endsickness. Endsickness number 1 was nominated for a Broken Pencil Zine Award and 2 Doug Wright Awards, and Endsickness number 2 was likewise nominated for a Doug Wright Award. She's still busy raising her kids, but she hopes to keep making comics wherever she has some free time. Endsickness, the completed anthology, is her first book, published by Conundrum Press. According to Sofia, art has always been a place for her to address collective features and anxieties. To help her process her thoughts and feelings about the topic, Sofia turned to paper and pencil as the most accessible artistic tool at her disposal. In Endsickness, a first collection of graphic stories about climate change and eco-anxiety, each tale by Sofia attempts to counter that challenge, seeing the scope and scale of the issue by taking a close look at the individual quandaries of living in a society that seems at odds with itself, unable to face the existential threat looming on the horizon. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Sofia Alarcon about her new graphic story collection, Endsickness, published by Conundrum Press. So, Sofia Alarcon, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. Before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
I'm actually not quite sure, but I think definitely up there would be Blankets by Craig Thompson and a few books by Julia Wirtz. I think around the same time I kind of got into those books, and Lisa Hanawal's books. So I think those were kind of like the first time I picked up a graphic novel, I guess, and was kind of like, oh, I didn't know you could make comic books this way. And yeah, kind of got hooked after I read those.
I bet a light bulb went on
Yeah.
as soon as you saw that. That's cool. That's cool. Well, those are great books. I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's so many people doing great stuff nowadays. It's kind of overwhelming to kind of keep track of everything. I mean, Anders Nielsen is kind of a big influence on me. I really like his work and kind of the subjects he tackles and his drawing style. So I think he's always kind of an influence on me. And then, yeah, I would say, I don't know, just sometimes I'll see something I like and different artists doing stuff out there. So it kind of changes depending on what I'm reading. And there's just too many to name. It's just kind of a lot of people doing great stuff.
We recently met up at the Prairie Comics Festival in Winnipeg. I wanted to ask you, how was that event for you?
Oh, that was great. That was a great event. It's always nice to see what people are doing in person. Oftentimes you'll see work that you won't necessarily see otherwise because it's stuff that isn't in a library or in a bookstore. And it's also nice to chat with other artists who are doing interesting stuff. Yeah, and it was just great to see what the western side of Canada is up to. It was nice to be out there. That was my first time to the western part of Canada, so it was very nice to have the opportunity to kind of see what people are up to there. It was a great show. lots of cool stuff, and I was happy to be there.
Yeah, I thought it was a great event and saw a lot of great people, including yourself. So that was wonderful. So appreciate that. But we're here talking about your latest book, Endsickness. I wonder if you could describe that book, maybe for someone who might not have heard about it.
Sure. It's a collection of short comics, and they're all kind of revolve around the theme of climate change and eco anxiety, but infused with humor. It's meant to be satirical, dark humor throughout it, and also kind of trying to tackle and process the ecological grief that comes with contemplating climate change. Yeah, but they're just comics. It sounds like I think it's a little bit intimidating sometimes when I try to describe it to people, but they're short comics, so you can read it fairly quickly, and they are meant to be somewhat humorous.
Now, I know that you're from the Nova Scotia area, and I've seen that there's definitely been a lot of climate related issues that have happened recently. I'm wondering overall, though, what was your inspiration for this book?
I think climate change is just something that I've kind of been thinking about for, I think, a large portion of my life. I think kind of back in high school around the Bush administration era when Al Gore's documentary first came out. That's kind of when I first started thinking about climate change. And I think maybe I didn't really start seriously thinking about it till like 2016, 2017. Yeah, so I've had all these feelings kind of building up and kind of a lot of frustration and grief. And I guess my instinct as an artist was to process it through my art. And, that was like the most accessible thing I had at my disposal was to put pen to paper and kind of try and process everything that I was thinking about it and dealing with on the page. And they're all fictional. It's not autobio, but it is like comes from a very personal place of my own struggles with ecological grief and yes, a lot of the frustrations that a lot of people might be feeling about the lack of action.
It's been said that you should always first create for yourself, but who ultimately is the target audience for your book?
I mean, I would hope anybody could be an audience for my book, but I guess definitely somebody who's in that headspace of having those feelings and frustrations would probably connect more with the subject and the comics. So, if you're kind of the climate aware, then you might enjoy the book more. But I would hope that anybody could find it accessible or relatable in some way.
Right. I want to switch gears here now and ask you if you could talk a wee bit about your creative process. How did you go about making this book?
It kind of just unfolded a little bit as I went along because this is my first kind of long form comic project. It kind of very much came out of the pandemic and having kind of that time to sit down. Yeah, it was just like a project that I had been thinking about. So the beginnings actually came about because I did this show through the Khyber Center for the Arts here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I did a drawing for this show that was at the beginning of my book, which shows like a polar bear talking to a Coca-Cola bottle. And the Coca-Cola bottle says open happiness. So it's like, after that drawing, I was like, oh, there's a lot more there that I could keep going with. And so then I like kind of came about from that show where I just felt like I had all these comics that I wanted to make related to it. Yeah, I just started making them and then started self-publishing them and putting them out and applying for grants and figuring out the whole thing of like applying to comic festivals to distribute the zines I was making. And it kind of just snowballed from there and ended up being a book, which Conundrum Press then put all of the zines that I had published together into one collection.
What was your favorite tool or special tool that you used to create your art?
I really enjoy physical media, but I would say that my favorite is probably color pencils because I just really like how you can blend them and layer them and like the texture that they make on the paper. yeah, I really like just kind of layering stuff. I'll put gouache, I'll put watercolor, inks, and yeah, every time I would start coloring a page, I'd do like tests to try and figure out a texture that I wanted or a gradient that I wanted. So yeah, physical media, but color pencils in particular, I really enjoy.
Great. Now, your bio says that you're a multidisciplinary artist. Which type of art do you prefer?
I suppose drawing because that's what I do the most. But I do like crocheting quite a bit and textile art as well. But I think drawing is my favorite. Yeah.
Sure. This book is published by Conundrum Press. You mentioned that. How was it working with that publication house?
Oh, it was great. Andy is great. And, it's really nice to be taken to all these comics festivals and get to see what other people are doing. And yeah, it's been also just appreciate that, a publishing house would kind of take a chance on somebody that doesn't have like a big following on Instagram or just wants to put like what you made out into the world. So that's nice too.
That's great to have that support for sure. Now, we've been talking about Endsickness, but I've got to ask you, do you have any other projects on the go?
Nothing like concrete at the moment. It's all just ideas or rough drafts in the making, but nothing for sure that I can say that I'm like definitively working on right now.
Okay. Now, we were talking that we met up at the Fairy Comics Festival, and you were actually also at the Montreal Comic Arts Festival. I'm wondering, do you have any other shows or events planned for the rest of the year?
Not confirmed. I might be in Charlottetown for the zine fair, but I'm not sure yet if I'll be able to go. But other than that, I'm kind of winding down with the comics festivals that I'll be at. So nothing, yeah, that's kind of the only thing on the horizon.
Okay. Well, with everything you have on the go today and in the future, where do you recommend that people go online to find out more about you?
You could go to Conundrum Press's website where you can find a book, but they also put out these interviews with the authors that they publish. If you want more insight into my process and Endsickness, you could also follow me on Instagram. My handle is Sophie _ C _ Sophie _ Drew. Sophie C, Sophie Drew, with an underscore in between all those. Or you could visit my website, sofia-alarcon.com.
Thanks to Sophia for the chat. You can discover more about Sophia online at sophia-alarcon.com and on Instagram at Sophie _ C _ Sophie _ Drew. You can discover more about Endsickness on Conundrum Press. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations about creators making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.